At 75 years old, André Rieu, the king of the waltz, collapsed mid-performance, leaving thousands of fans stunned. But behind that single shocking moment lay a lifetime of hidden battles. From a childhood marked by cold discipline to a career built on defying tradition, Rieu's story is one of brilliance shadowed by pain. He created an empire of joy for millions, yet behind the glittering gowns and roaring applause, his health, friendships, and even sanity were tested to their limits. What pushed him to the brink and what keeps him standing today reveals far more than the music ever could. André Rieu was born on October 1st, 1949, into a home where silence ruled louder than music. His father, also named André, was a respected conductor admired across Europe. But inside the family walls, he was a figure of fear, not admiration. Discipline was demanded, not affection. Rieu later admitted, almost casually, "My parents didn't love me." That cold fact shaped everything. His mother, obsessed with results and appearances, dismissed imagination as weakness. Creativity was a liability, not a gift. If a teacher praised his talent, it was thrown back at him like an insult. In a house with 6 children, laughter was rare, tenderness almost non-existent. The atmosphere was a rehearsal hall without applause, a place where feelings had no stage. For a boy destined to become one of the most expressive musicians alive, it was a cruel contradiction. His earliest memories weren't lullabies or bedtime stories. They were the sharp edges of criticism, the suffocating demand for perfection. That lack of warmth left a permanent hollow, one that no amount of applause could ever fully fill. But just when it seemed his childhood would drown in silence, a chance encounter revealed an escape he never expected. At just 5 years old, André met someone who would crack open the walls of his suffocating home. His first violin teacher, a graceful young woman, treated him not as a soldier in training, but as a child capable of feeling. Instead of shouting, she coaxed him. Instead of punishing mistakes, she guided his bow across the strings until sound became sensation. For the first time, music wasn't about control, it was about release. Through her, André discovered something he had never felt before: freedom. Not parental approval, not academic achievement, but a personal voice that couldn't be silenced. While other children drilled scales mechanically, he searched for resonance, for the vibrations that made him feel alive. Each note carried a spark of rebellion against the coldness of his parents' house. This discovery became addictive. The violin was no longer just an instrument, it was a lifeline. A bow against strings felt more human than the words exchanged under his roof. And though he was too young to articulate it, André had already found the only language that mattered, the one his family could never take away. But this discovery, while liberating, would soon clash violently with the iron will of his father. As André grew older, his love for waltzes deepened, but to his father, waltzes were frivolous, an insult to the discipline of classical music. The house that already offered no warmth now became a battleground. "I didn't raise you to play waltzes," his father once screamed, a line meant not just to scold, but to break his spirit. Every note André played in defiance widened the gulf between them. Then came Marjorie, the woman who would become his lifelong partner in every sense. She wasn't just a companion, she was the one who believed in him when no one else did. But his family rejected her immediately. His mother's fury was so intense that André left home that very night, never to return. His parents would never attend a single one of his concerts, not even as he rose to global stardom. Though the applause of thousands would one day surround him, André admitted years later that the emptiness of his childhood never left. He spent years in therapy trying to understand why success felt so hollow. Yet in that rupture, leaving his family behind, he gained something priceless: the freedom to create music on his own terms. And he intended to use it. By the late 1970s, André had grown tired of sterile concert halls and the cold formality of traditional orchestras. In 1908, he gathered 12 musicians and created the Maestri Salon Orchestra. They played in small venues, community halls, weddings, forgotten border towns. No costumes, no pretension, just pure sound and human connection. Behind the scenes, it was Marjorie who kept it all together, handling bookings, writing arrangements, and quietly shaping the future André envisioned. In 1987, he took a bolder step, founding the Johann Strauss Orchestra. Their mission was radical yet simple: to bring joy back to music. Gone were the black tails and rigid silence. Instead, performers wore colorful gowns, smiled at their audiences, and invited them to laugh and dance. Critics sneered, calling it musical pornography, mocking the lights and gowns. But audiences surged to his side. The turning point came in '95 at the UEFA Champions League final in Vienna. As his orchestra played the second waltz, football fans stood still, swaying as one. In that moment, sport and art collided, and André Rieu became a household name. His record soared to #1, and classical music had found its unlikely pop star. But fame, as he would soon learn, offers no protection from collapse. In 2010, at the height of his career, disaster struck. André was hit by a viral infection that attacked his inner ear. For a violinist, balance is everything, and suddenly his world tilted uncontrollably. Dizzy, bedridden, and unable to perform, he canceled tours for the first time in decades. The man who had built his empire on reliability and joy was forced to whisper words he had never spoken before. "I can't." Fans were heartbroken, and whispers spread. Was this the end of André Rieu's career? Doctors tried every conventional treatment, but progress was slow. His recovery seemed uncertain until an unexpected letter arrived from an Australian fan. The man described his own battle with the same illness and included exercises that had helped him regain stability. Desperate, André tried them. Slowly, the spinning stopped. Months later, he stood on stage again, shaky at first, then firm. His return was hailed as a triumph, but André knew the truth. He was no longer invincible. The illness left a vulnerability that could never fully heal. Behind every concert, behind every encore, lurked the fear of collapse. And soon, life would deliver an even more devastating blow. In December 2016, tragedy struck again, not through illness, but through heartbreak. Ruud Merckx, a trombonist and one of André's closest friends, died suddenly in his sleep while on tour. To the outside world, he was a bandmate. To André, he was family, a brother in all but blood. The loss shattered him. Without hesitation, André canceled shows in Nottingham, London, Birmingham, and Glasgow. Fans were disappointed, but his grief was too heavy to ignore. For a man whose entire life had been built on performance, this pause wasn't about physical recovery. It was about mourning something irreplaceable. The orchestra, always described by André as his second family, shared the pain. Their concerts had always radiated a joy, but for months afterward, the music carried an undercurrent of sorrow. Behind the stage smiles, every note was tinged with loss. André admitted later that he felt hollow, as though part of his foundation had vanished. It was a reminder that even amidst glittering success, life could strip away what mattered most. Yet despite his grief, he pressed forward. But the cracks were forming, and by 2024, those cracks widened into a collapse that would rewrite his entire career. March 2024 should have been another victory lap. 6 sold-out concerts in Mexico City promised triumph, but almost immediately disaster brewed. Altitude, jet lag, and flu symptoms collided. Backstage, André faltered, feverish, disoriented, and breathless. He called Marjorie in a hushed voice, "I don't want a concert day like this ever again." 4 concerts were canceled mid-tour. Over 40,000 ticket holders were furious. The orchestra, 125 people, was abruptly sent home. Flights reversed, tickets refunded, chaos left behind. For André, the collapse wasn't just physical, it was the unraveling of his system. That was when Pierre, his son, stepped forward. No longer just the tour manager, Pierre became his father's shield. He imposed strict limits: no more intercontinental marathons, controlled scheduling, longer rest periods. What had once been an unstoppable touring machine slowed into a carefully managed rhythm. It wasn't a retreat, it was survival. But for a man who had lived decades at full speed, the adjustment was a profound shock. Fans saw only the glittering returns. What they didn't see was Pierre rewriting every backstage rule just to keep his father standing. And yet, slowing down came with its own unexpected costs. After Mexico City, André's performances changed. Medical clearances, oxygen backstage, and rehearsal breaks became as important as lighting cues. Pierre enforced new rules: hydrate before stage, limit encores, rest before handshakes. Behind the scenes, it was survival disguised as routine. On stage, André adapted. Instead of relentless energy, he leaned into intimacy. More audience interaction, more storytelling between songs, slower waltzes replacing high-energy pieces. Fans adored the shift, seeing it as generosity, not necessity. In truth, it was strategy, each pause carefully placed to conserve his strength. At home in Maastricht, André found solace in the garden of his 15th century home. Instead of marathon rehearsals, he practiced privately, saving energy for show nights. Friends noticed the change: fewer late calls, softer rhythm, a willingness to say no. These adjustments gave him longevity. But for André, slowing down carried an invisible weight. His life had always been constant movement: planes, arenas, encores. Now with Pierre pulling the brakes, each show felt like a test, a reminder that he was no longer invincible. The illusion of endless stamina remained, but beneath it, André was carefully rationing every note. And one final daring idea loomed on the horizon. At 75, André Rieu still commands stages, but each performance carries a weight unseen by the crowd. Medical precautions, carefully rationed energy, and his son Pierre watching every move. He has survived illness, grief, and collapse, reinventing himself when many thought his career was over. Now, whispers suggest one last world tour, the most ambitious of all. But the question isn't whether André can do it, it's whether he should. Because every note he plays today isn't just music, it's defiance. And when the final waltz comes, it may be the bravest performance of his life.